right. Test, test 1, 2, test, test, test 1, 2, test, test, test 1, 2, test, test 1, 2, test.
Test one, two, test, test. All right. Hey, what's going on? I don't know. I think I started probably 10 minutes ago. Can you hear me? Perfect. And now I fell behind today and I'm having to enter in all my screenshots. Looking at my phone right now. What are you doing up? Trying to get my starting point here so I can start entering in the data. There we go. All right. Loading. Gonna start here. We're gonna do it the quick way. Tika Shack. That's food delivery. And in the zone. Usually I do this on my other computer. But I wanted to try and experiment and go live. This is actually a high-paying offer. Let's see if I can lower the intensity of my laptop. I wonder if there's... that might help. 1:30 in California. Yes, sir. What part of California? Next, we did a mellow mushroom. Torrance. I've never heard of Torrance. Is that inland or is that along the coast? So pizza. Tartar pizza. That's why it's hidden behind this up here. It's a pizza order. All right, pizza order. It's along the coast. Do you do gig work at all? Close to Palo Verdes. Is that north or south of LA? South. So it's in between San Diego and LA. I've got you on a different screen on the main computer. I'm working on a laptop right now. That's the only way that I could see the chat unless I was to buy a business plan through this software that I'm using. Persian room. Let's see. That's well, this is my spreadsheet. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all. Everybody wants to know about it, but it's where I track all of my data. Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, Torrance Beach, and going. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this is this sheet here. This is what I call my AR tracker. So I'll show you here real quick. This shows in this cell here in J1. Unfortunately, I don't have any type of a highlighter for the thing. I don't know if that's a tool, but this shows my current AR with everything filled in from what I'm got blank. So I don't know what it currently is right now. This is my rating, and that's just a drop down. That has no bearing on here. It just is for tracking it. And then I've got my CR, my completion rate. So anytime that it finds a decline, or excuse me, a unassigned order, then this number reduces and it counts the most recent 100 completed orders. And then this area up here, these 9, this shows after this field here what's being replaced. So my next order that comes in would be replacing another acceptance. So you can see here, up here in the corner, that top down, left to right. So 1 plus 6 plus 7. So in 8 jobs, I'll have a decline offer. So if I get a lowball offer, a lot of times they give you a decline for a decline. Then when I know, because that number here will migrate to the bottom, then I'll know, do I want to raise my acceptance rating? Because then I'll know that this is being replaced. And all the rest of this just kind of explains. This is a number that comes from another sheet. That's what I would have made on the average Tuesday, or actually yesterday was Monday. And I don't have all my numbers entered in. I got into a problem with the bank. So you see all my earnings, I have to go in and calculate my earnings and put them in over here. And then that number will reduce what I'm actually short. But this is where I spend most of my day inside of here. Every time I get a job, I screenshot it and I enter that information into here. And then from here, This is like last year's data. Then this will break down how many jobs, what percentage of those jobs. It just gives me a total breakdown of everything that's in here. But yeah, this is the coveted AR tracker that I created so that I know throughout the entire day what my acceptance rate is. And then I've got this broken down. Here, I'll jump over here real quick. I went and I scraped every single business that's inside of our zone. And then it tracks, like, so far this year, I've been to Bosa Donuts at this location 16 times. I've been to Chick-fil-A 23 times. So every time I enter the name of the company that I went to, how long does it take? No, usually I'm not doing what I'm doing right now. Usually I'm doing this as the order comes in. Order comes in, I just reflex, automatically take a screenshot. Then once I take that screenshot, I decide if I'm going to take it or not. And then I go into this tracker and I enter it in. And because everything's dropped down, then it works really quick. It's just click on the button, select it, and then I've even gone into the stats, and depending on how many I did in the pecking order, I've changed the drop down order to speed up the process, so I don't have to scroll all the way down. Or you can start typing, and then it'll reduce everything that's in there. But looking, for instance, if I do this and click there, I don't think you can see it. It doesn't show it on here. It does on the mobile app, but it tells you, there's 515 merchants that are in this list. And I think that there's 100 different combinations of offer types. But just like here, Cold Stone, I'm just doing this so that I don't have to do it tomorrow. Cold Stone Creamery, and that was Cold Stone Creamery at Desert Ridge. Type of delivery. See, it's a food delivery up at the top. It's in my zone. And then whether or not it was a high-paying offer, which no, it wasn't. The one previous to that also wasn't. That's one of the beauties of taking the screenshots, is it allows you to go back in and automatically update everything. It's kind of like how do you say it? Quality assurance. Hey, no problem. I'm just sharing what I do. You just did 14 hours yesterday here in Minnesota. Well, guess what? I'm from Minnesota. That's where I was born and raised, in Bloomington. $400. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm done with the snow. I spent most of my life there, well, my younger age, before I went into the service. And then when I got out of the service in '88, I fell in love with golf, and I couldn't golf year-round in Minnesota. Actually, mileage tracking, just to show it off. Mileage tracking. Let this page load, and we go into 2026. Let me hide this up here. Just got to reload this because I haven't been in here, and obviously I've been doing everything on my cell phone. Let's see here. So looking at this is target earnings, and then here's all of my gas. So it shows my average price that I've been paying so far this year is $2.98. I average 6.9 gallons a day. I average $20.83. So far, I've done 5,800 miles already. If you want to know what I drive in a week as far as mileage, let me see if I can find a week here. So looking down here, down the lower right-hand corner, that shows the sum total mileage. I average 273 miles a day. That's incorrect. That's because of this low 90 that I only did half. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's a week. So I average 311 miles per day. My miles per gallon, shows that again, the same thing. If I was to average that out, I'm averaging 44 miles to the gallon. But see, this is the beauty of having this, and this doesn't take that much. This is 4 entries a day. I go to the gas pump. What was the price? How much was purchased? What was the gas price? How much was purchased? What was the dollar amount spent? And then when I pull into the house and I take the odometer reading and I enter that, and then the other information that I enter is this information, which is daily earnings. I break down the DoorDash income versus the tip income. This is calculated off of whatever the tax rate is and the number of miles. So, for instance, even though I made $406 on Thursday, on January 8th, because of the mileage deduction, I got to deduct $248. That means on paper, I had profited $106.68, but it's really cash flow. I'm not sure. The other individual would have to answer that. I don't know about the mileage, or excuse me, I don't know about the limited number of hours. See, in Arizona, there is no limit. Now, there is a limit for Uber just because it's tied to rideshare. So let me go back to this. I gotta get this stuff done. Mellow mushroom, Persian room, cold stone. We went to Rubio's. Did the Rubio's Coastal Grill. That's a food delivery. That was in North Phoenix, and that was not a high-paying offer. Next one was Tika Shack. That was another food delivery. That was in the zone. That also was not a high-paying offer. Next one was a mellow mushroom again. Mellow mushroom. And that was a pizza order. That was out of the zone. In Scottsdale, Arcadia, that was not a high-paying offer. Now, see, I used to be able to insert the images that I would do as the jobs came in into Google Sheets, but something's changed. I don't know if it happened with Google Sheets or if it's because the file is so big, but can't remember if I did that job or not. Yes, I did. Okay. Next one was the Raising Cane's. Raising Cane's. Another food delivery. Out of the zone. That's North Phoenix, which I hate. I hate North Phoenix. I forgot to shut this one off and pause my dash, so they tried giving me a Popeyes. So that's going to be North Phoenix merchant, and that was a decline. And we're going to say pickup location, and then that was, it would have been back into my zone, and that was not a high paying offer. Oh, we're buffering for some reason. All right, we're back. Then we did another Raising Cane's. That one there, that one should have been a decline. So when I say a decline here, that's going to change. That's going to change this number, or actually, when I do this, it's going to change this number down to an 85. And then it also colors this red. And if it's a batched order, then I've got hidden fields that are over here so that I can add a merchant 2 and a merchant 3. And if it's a add-on delivery, then I've got additional fields over here that I can say 1 or 0 as to whether or not it was an add-on. It just allows you to drill down and say what's actually happening, in your zone. What are you actually doing? Where are you spending your time? What percentage of the time are you out of your zone versus in your zone? I mean, a lot of people can approximate that information, but they just don't know. So we went to culinary dropout. Maybe I should read off what the dollar amounts were. Are you on the point system? No, we're not. We're not on that new one yet. We're just strictly on the tier program. But what I say is, because you have to understand, because I work so many hours, if I say that I get a contract violation and it doesn't get pushed out for 100 deliveries, for me, those 100 deliveries happen in 2.5 days. Whereas somebody that only does 5 deliveries, it would take them 20 days to get rid of that contract violation. So I look forward to any type of gamification. It's like, on-time deliveries or whatever. Even if I have a bad period and I drop down into a lower tier, it's not like I'm going to be stuck there for a week or 2 weeks. I'm going to be stuck there for 2.5 days, because it'll automatically reset itself. So I look forward to the point system. But then again, is the point system really going to give people with better numbers, better opportunities, and better jobs? Or is it just going to put them in a platinum bucket, a gold bucket, or a silver bucket, or a no status bucket as far as what types of jobs? All right, so we did a McDonald's $8.95 going 7.2 miles. Some of these jobs you're going to be like, there's no way in hell I would have taken that job. What are you doing? Let's see, McDonald's, that was Tatum and Bell. That's a food delivery. And that was in the zone. And that was not a high paying offer. All right. Then we did a Taco Bell. That was $13.20 going 6 miles. Which Taco Bell was it? Oh, that was the Taco Bell on the 101. Frank Lloyd in the 101. Oh, we didn't do this. That was a food delivery. That was in the zone. Not high paying. In Yorba Linda in Newport Beach area, he's on the New Point system, but his AR requirement is 80% for platinum. See, now this is what I believe. I believe that when DoorDash lowered the suggested tip amount for the customers, then DoorDash introduced the Platinum Pass to allow dashers who are platinum to try and adjust without losing their status. And I still have 3 of them banked up. But when that first hit, I actually took half a day off because I kind of wanted to like curl up into a ball. It's like I'm finding myself decline because all my calculations were based off of $20 an hour and minimum of $5 offer. And because of the lower tip amount, all these things were coming in like as low as $3.50. I don't do Pro Shopper. I used to be an avid shopper, but they're just putting too many tasks and requirements on that. I have like 7,550 shopping orders currently. But when catering left, then I really went into shopping because shopping kind of became the new catering orders. So getting back to that platinum status, it's my belief that what ended up happening was you had to lower your requirement down to a minimum of $15 an hour and as low as $3.50 going no more than 4 miles. And that's what I use as my calculation. And what I find is that even though I'm willing to accept as low as a $15 per hour job, DoorDash still maintains you at $20 plus. They just want you to move the trash. And if you won't do that, if you'll stick to the $20 and $5 like I did, then you'll find that you're no longer platinum. You just will not be able to maintain it. And so I only have a couple more to enter here. Then I got to go try and figure out my hourly earnings. Next one was Kona Grill. $9.45. Let's see, Kona Grill, that was out of the zone, but it's a food delivery. Out of the zone, kind of in a neutral spot. And we did a McDonald's. That was Tatum and Bell. So this is 15 jobs. So 15 jobs at 2 jobs per hour. This is 7.5 hours that I didn't log anything, but obviously it's not taking me 7.5 hours to log in this information. And this is the first time I've ever done it from the computer. Usually it's just like the next day when I'm sitting there and I don't have something going on, that I'll just go back and enter in anything that I missed. I don't know the details of Prop 22. I would think that anything that's passed on to the customers as far as additional fees, you have to really be careful because there's a point in time where somebody's like, I'm not willing to pay that price. And then all of a sudden you lose your customer base. They'll go elsewhere, and then those other companies have the ability to try and win them over. The nice thing about Prop 22 is it didn't just affect DoorDash. It affected all the gig companies. So everybody was in the same boat. So if you still had loyalty, then there's really no reason to switch unless some other fee changed, in order to be able to try and entice them over. All right, so it looks like I added too many fields. I'm going to double check here real quick. I forgot something. I think I forgot something. That's what it was. I think there were 2 jades. Yeah. 2 jades. So I'm going to insert a row. Select February. Select 1. No. And this field here, this is if I paused. If I paused to prevent them inside of the merchant in order to not give me another order, or did I pause and then relocate? Did I just relocate, or did I pause for 35 minutes to take a nap? And did I do that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times? I will not hesitate to take a nap just because I'm, tired. I don't want to do anything to take me out of the game. All right, so this one here was out of zone. It's food delivery. This one was out of zone. And this other one was out in Carefree. All right. Delete those 2. All right. And now this field up here in I-5, that shows in the last 50 deliveries. Excuse me, I dropped something. In the last 50 deliveries, how many declines did I have? So if I do 40 deliveries, then there might be 7 of them that are going to present themselves, in a sense, to be replaced. And I just find one of the other reasons for doing this is I now have the ability. To check and see if DoorDash is doing a decline for a decline, or they give you a catering order to replace a decline. And I think depending on how your day went or what your acceptance rating is, determines whether or not they're checking to see if your behavior has changed, or if they're going to reward you. You said you found out from Aaron. Yeah, Aaron's gig. I reached out to Aaron because I was searching for, who had a lot of deliveries, who was doing a lot. And I just found out that he was like king of the hill. He was one of the best Uber and Lyft drivers, out there making bank here in the Phoenix area. And then when I met up with him, he was like really struggling. He liked to leave town, to get out of the heat. And he'd take a couple of months off. He'd work hard, and then he'd go play hard. But then he was like doing Rover, and he was doing GoPuff. And so I reached out to him, and I found him on Facebook. I sent him a message. I sent him some screenshots. And of course, that was kind of a shock to him. I wanted to try and meet up with him. I drove all the way out to Chandler to meet up with him, but he didn't want to at that time. He had other things. I think he was still processing, everything that was going on. But yeah, I like Aaron. I like Aaron a lot. He's fun to watch, especially when he's hooping and hollering because he got a super chat. All right, so those numbers are done. I can set this up for tomorrow. So we'll insert a row, and then there's more hidden fields over here. Double click on that. That pops this up. So today's the 3rd, and as soon as this field here is populated, then it turns purple. Or is supposed to turn purple. Oh, it did turn purple. You just can't see it. Yeah, you just can't see it with the colors. But that way, when it's collapsed, it allows me to see where the break of the day was. So, like, you see the color behind here. So then it lets me know that this was the start of that day, and then this is the beginning of the next day. You know, this is a living, breathing document. And so this is 85 is where we're at. It's at 85, but that's because there's nothing in this field right here. Excuse me. There's nothing inside this offer field. Otherwise, that would change over to 85. So I just do this so that I have that at a glance. No, I'm not Pro Shopper. I'm at 100% acceptance rate, and we'll just get this ready for tomorrow, assuming that we took that first offer of the day. So then that's done. I'll show you what I do with this. We'll go on over here and take the 23rd. Okay, so we're going to copy the 23rd. And then we're going to go over to this other document, this tracking document, and we're going to go to the 2026 hourly. This is going to take a little while to load. Click over here, do a Control F, and then do a 123. And that's going to take us over to the 23rd. So then we drop down here to it looks like I had already entered in these numbers. Let's just double check. 2206. Yep, there's 2206. And I do have the 467 that was there as well. That's the 467. So I can clear this out because the numbers have already been entered in. Edit, delete values. See if we entered in the 24th. It looks like we don't have anything for the 24th. So I'll come on over here to the 24th, highlight this data, copy it, go over to the other tab. That's the bottom of that. There's the 6th and the 7th. So then we right click on this. We say paste special, values only. And then all this stuff on the right is all going to calculate out. And then color code. Oops. Yep. There it goes. Let me see if I can. There it is. This might be too small for you to see. But at least you'll be able to see the color coding. If we can drop it down a little bit more, you won't be able to see the values, but you'll be able to see the sheet itself as to what's actually going on in here. Now, this actually breaks it down on the 24th and shows over in this area here the goal for that day for the $20 per hour that we set, and then whether or not we reached it. And then it's going to color coordinate it. So this was above the goal for the hour. This is below, above, et cetera, et cetera. And this is used then to help me track whether or not I can see any trends, any patterns on any of this stuff as to this time frame between 1 and 2 o'clock. I usually never hit $20 an hour. So that was the 24th. And then I can also go down here into the 24th, and I can say that I started at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's my shift that I started. And then I went to 12 a.m. That way, just at a moment's notice, I can say what was my schedule, and I can track that. And if I got cash tips or half pay or something along those lines, then it'll total those up down here at the bottom and give me that information. How long have I been doing DoorDash? For about 5.5 years. And it was my after work job when I was doing dispatch, and then it turned into my full-time when that company sold to another company and I was not happy with the other company. So instead of working 8 to 10 hours for a dispatcher for a courier service and then going out for 5 hours, afterwards, I just said, if I'm working that many hours anyway, why don't I just dedicate the entire time to DoorDash? And so that's what I did. And ever since I did that, I've been, making really good money. So 6 to 7, I got to enter a manual $10 tip. So 6 to 7. That was on the 24th. 6 to 7, cash tip, $10. How about yourself? How long you been doing it? You've been door dashing over 5 years, but only have 13,000 dashes. You gotta step up your your hourly. How many hours do you work a day? Or are you just an extreme cherry picker and that's why you're not doing as many orders as I am? I'm just going to keep plugging away at this while you're chatting over here. Delete that. So this just frees up space so that I can, add dates, more dates. All right, that's the 25th. Pay special, doing that. Little of both. So then those numbers are going to work their magic. They already have. And this up top here, this shows I exclude anything less than $10 an hour, and I also exclude anything over $50 an hour. Just because if I got a large catering order and made $70 to $100+ for doing that, then I did not want that to skew my hourly rate, because then it just wouldn't be accurate. So that's just kind of like an anomaly. So I don't really track that. So you can see these numbers will all change their color. If I say this is what my goal is only to make $15 an hour, then watch this area here and you'll see it all change. Okay, there it goes. So all these were good and above $15 an hour. So I can track that. And then this actually shows what my yearly average is. Last year, I think I averaged $19.40. And I already knew that DoorDash had a market cap because I had gotten the screenshot, which you can see inside of the community posts on the YouTube channel. I pinned it to the top, but if you open up that image and you look down at the bottom, you'll see that something that a lot of people talk about but don't have any proof, and I have the proof. So I'm going to put that back to 20, and then this will all change back. So that was the 25th, right? No, we entered in the 25th. 26th, we still need data for. You're the first person to really see this. I gave a little sneak preview in one of my videos, but everybody wants to see this. I just have to find the time to create the videos. Pay special. And all those numbers are going to change again. There they go. On over to the 27th. Excuse me, the 28th. So see, it's really, this stuff is like, I enter in those hourly things. Every hour at 5 minutes past the hour, I think that's when the DoorDash's clock. That's when DoorDash says, okay, you should be at your 20. I mean, just pay attention when you're done with the job. See if you're somewhere, like say at 8 o'clock. Did you drop that job at 8:03 to 8:07? Was it somewhere around that 8:05? Because you'll find that it's like always really close. And if you're like only 10 minutes left, it's like 55 minutes, 7:55. You're going to get this little cheap offer just to try and pull you up from that $17 that you're at right now to try and get you to go run some small job, to get you at 20. It's funny. See, when you do what I do and you work this many hours and you're tracking this data, you see things that other people don't. You see the trends, what the dollar amounts are. If anybody asks me what my mileage is or my miles per gallon or what my hourly rate is or how much I've earned, et cetera, I have all that data. I just have to go reference it. I don't have it at the top of my head. But I treat this like a business. And it's really frustrating because I'm an entrepreneur and I want to get paid for the excellence that I bring and all the stuff that I'm doing and how I work with the merchants and everything else. So it's really irritating when you don't get a chance to rise to the top. I call it DoorDash is a capitalistic company that treats its DoorDash drivers with a socialistic mindset, that everybody gets what they need according to their needs. And it's like everybody's going to get a C grade. Well, your A students are going to stop producing A work because they're producing A work, but you're giving them a C. And the F students aren't going to raise their game to the C level because they don't have to, because they're going to get a C. And so it just doesn't work. And it's really irritating. You should pay the top drivers the top pay. And if everybody else wants what the top drivers are getting, then they need to do what the top drivers did. And I'm prior military. And so the way the military does it, it's kind of like, hey, even if you don't advance in rank, you got a pay raise just because you put in another year. So there's this scale that increases in pay according to your longevity, and then it increases again if you move up in rank. And so it's just a chart, like a multiplication table. So you could do something like base pay. Maybe everybody starts out at $2, but if you've been doing this for 5 years and you've got maybe 20,000 deliveries, so your 5 years is your time in service and your 20,000 deliveries is your rank. Well, then here's your pay scale, and we're going to bump you up to $3.50 for your base pay. Let's see, I think 27th, I can always undo this if I was wrong. But let's see here. 27, $22. Did I do that wrong? 22. I go back here and double check and make sure that I'm not deleting data. 18.15 for the 26th. I wonder if I took a day off. I did. You see that? I took the 26th off. Sometimes you gotta pay attention to what you're doing. So that means I should be able to copy this and move it over to here. I should be able to take this field here. Just drop it down to there. That'll eliminate all this data. And I'll come down here and leave that as off. I'll go back and do all these. This isn't important. This is really just logging everything. This is just so if I'm saying, oh, that's interesting, on the 27th, what shift did I work? And I'm always working the same shift, so it really doesn't change. The problem is, it'd be nice to be able to sell this, but somebody would just take it and copy it and sell it themselves. And it's kind of got my data in there as far as merchants and that type of stuff and zones. And I'm not privy to that information, from DoorDash. So that was the 27th. So this is the 28th. So good thing I didn't delete that. Let's double check. 27th should be 1850. $18.15. Okay, that's good. And then this one, Oh, I did that wrong. See, I just did a blank paste, and I need to do a paste special. Okay, that's the 28th. It's taken a while to do this. It's always tweaking it. And it's like, gosh, I really wish that this was in here. And where's that? But it's just like, okay, you got all these numbers. And now what do I get if I take this and I divide it by that? And, times the number of hours. And how do I make sure that there's no error codes and that type of stuff? And if I didn't know how to do something, I just use AI or Google and ask it a question and trial and error. And see, sometimes I think it's a pipe dream too, because it's like, you think about selling it and it's like, you hear the numbers like, well, there's 8 million dashers and da, 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 da. But then you look on YouTube and it's like all these content creators only have, except for the big ones, and did they buy them? But it's like, there's only like 4,000 to 8,000. So it's like, where's everybody else? How do you reach them to, one, bring them to your channel, two is, to sell them stuff. All right, 29th. My alarms are going to start going off here pretty soon. There's the 29th. Paste special. Same thing. It's going to start calculating out those numbers. There they are. Okay, we're almost done. Oh, we got a $3 cash tip. Usually, if it's an even number like that, I know it's a cash tip. If it was $4.67, I would know that it was half pay. Or I can always go into the app to go check. But $3 from 2 to 3. It's like, this is really not that important, obviously, but it's just paying attention to the details. I'm just going to go on over here. What date was that? It was on the 29th. So cash tip, $3. Enter. All right. The 30th. Looks like we had half pay on the 30th. I'm curious as to why that only goes to 10 o'clock at night. So I'm going into my DoorDash app. Well, I'm sure that they would. I think everybody's interested in it, and this is now alive, right? This is alive, and I'll put a thumbnail on top of it, and it'll be there, and I can talk about it in my other videos that I spent some time on the lives, and everybody's going to want to see what the numbers are. I'm sure that they'll be intrigued and watch. I just don't know how well they can see the numbers on there. Can you see the numbers fairly well? Because I think it's only $7.20 because I'd have to pay for the Premier or the next level up for the software instead of the free version. But yeah, driving daily, John, he would probably promote it. I'm sure a lot of people would promote it. Everybody would want to get their hands on it. That's why it's kind of like, you guys have no idea who I am. You had no idea that I had almost 48,000 deliveries, and you have no idea that I have all this information, and you had no idea that I was working 18 hours a day. Some people's immediate response is, well, that's because you're a clown and you're stupid and you're probably moving trash orders. And then it's like, well, I'm making 6 figures per year. So you haven't seen any of this spreadsheet before? Did you see the other video that I did? Let me finish this up, and then I'll show you around a little bit. First, I want to double check why that's truncated. 338.32, and that was on the 30th. Yeah, see, that should have been 337, or excuse me. I worked 18 hours and 30 minutes, so that means this dollar amount down here should be 377.32, and that means I'm missing that dollar amount. Yeah. See, that's if this was 1080, and that's where it's like trial and error, and I'll be paying the $35 a month for the next version, of this, which will give me the features that I'm looking for. But until I get this laptop mounted inside of my car, then why spend the money, But the things that I'm looking for, like when I'm talking and I have, I want bullet points of topics or whatever. This other version that has like a teleprompter type thing. So when I'm sitting inside of my car, I can, actually see what it is that I'm supposed to be talking about and actually come across a little bit more professional instead of just ramblings. I gotta try and find the 30th. Hang on a second here. It was I ended with 2 Taco Bells, so that's where I get to go back to my screenshots. Okay, that was the 31st. So that means that's the 30th. Yeah, 337.32. So I look at the timestamp, 11:52, 11:01. Okay, so 1070 plus 745. So that's 17, 18, 15. I go 377, 32 minus, what did I say? 1815. So then that's 359.17. All right, so that's done. That was the 30th. Oh, I had that payment there between 6 and 7, 578. Let's see. On your other videos, I've seen parts of the spreadsheet on your other videos. It is a tax write-off. What is a tax write-off? Uh, 578, 6 and 7, 578. It is a tax write-off. I don't know what you're asking. And see, these 2 days here, I've got to go in and I've got to run these times on those 2 days. So I'll end up doing that tomorrow. Go over here. Down here. Edit. Delete values. Copy what I have. That's the alarms going off. Put that. What was that? That's not right. So all we're doing is just moving everything back up to the front over here. And that's the 31st and the 2nd. Just cleaning up the worksheet. So that was that should have been the 1st because this is the 2nd over here. So I got 3 days I got to clean up data for. So as soon as I take and move this information over, all these numbers will disappear once I delete all these. Bam. Put this one as the 2nd. We'll set this one up for the 3rd. So then that's all set up. There's this information that's off to the side, and that takes from where I just transferred over all that information, all those averages on every single Wednesday. It takes an average of every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Friday, and shows what the average dollar amount is that I've earned. And then there's also a weekly average as well. So there's the weekly average, and we can expand everything. So there's the weekly average here, and then there's each individual day. So if I scroll down to the bottom here, say tomorrow is Tuesday, right? So at 417 is what I averaged so far this year on a Tuesday. So if I go up to the top of the sheet and I change this date up here to Tuesday, then it's going to pull that number in right here, and it's going to use that information to check against your goal, your $20 goal, whatever your goal is. And then it's going to take that calculation and it's going to tell you what your plus or minus. So a lot of times I'll just have this shrunk because I really don't need it. I just really need to see the time because all the numbers will populate inside of here. Just throw these dates in here real quick just so I have a quick reference. That was January 27th. No, 28th. And then I can just drag those down. Now this one here I have to calculate. Time to wake up. Those go off on two different devices and I have to do math problems in order to snooze them. Or not snooze them, to shut them off. They're all individual alarms. But I have to calculate this one here. Let's see if... $2.999 divided by 9 times 10 is the real price for a full gallon instead of 9/10 of a gallon. So 333. So if we take $19 spent divided by 3.33, that's going to give me 5.705. It seems low. Second sheet up here. That one was 633. So why don't we do that? Same dollar amount, same gas price. That's what we're going to do. We're sticking to it. Now, this information here from the 20th, we took off the 26th. So if I just copy this information here, and I go into the other sheet. So the first sheet was where we logged in that information. And then if we go into 2026, let's see, 22nd. So we're missing stuff from the 22nd. Let me double check that before I just start pasting stuff in here. So let's say I had some of that in there. We'll double check 320.8 on the 20th. $320.8 on the 20th. So we took off the 22nd. Where there's nothing there. Yeah, now I have it marked as off on the 22nd. Yeah, skips. So we're going to take escape. We're going to take this down to the 25th, 23rd to the 25th. Same thing. Paste special. It just keeps all the formatting there because it's not identical. And that's going to start doing some stuff that's going to be missing in some of these other fields. Guess is pretty much by itself. Yeah. All right, and then we go from the 27th through the rest of the month, but it's only going to go up to the 31st, so we don't want to copy the stuff for February. So 26 down to the 31st, same thing. Copy that information. Pay special. Purchasing that additional 30. Oh yeah, it's definitely a tax write-off. Just don't need to spend the $35 if I'm not. I don't need to spend the money if I'm not needing it right away. So how do you like doing the live stream? I like it when I'm talking about something that I know and I can speak from the heart. I don't like to fill empty space. So showing you and actually doing my work and just talking through what I'm doing is like no different than, okay, we just got an offer for blah, 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 blah. But it's like, all right, I'm driving 8 miles to get to the destination and it's like boring and I'm working my ass off. I've always worked my ass off. I've always had a family that I've had to support. So I don't have a life. And that's just the truth. So I can't tell you about the car that I broke down or what my interests are. I'm interested in trying to get out of debt. I had a large family. I went through a divorce. I had 5 kids. Now I've got 1 kid from a different relationship. And it's her birthday on the 6th. So I'm going to be taking a half a day off for that because she's a night owl. But yeah, if I don't have much to talk about, just shoot the breeze. I mean, if you want to talk about football, I can tell you about the game of football. I can tell you about some of the players, but I'm not an avid football, fanatic. I like the game. I love the game. I just have never gotten into the stats. I like hockey, I like the outdoors. I can talk about all that type of stuff, but it's like, it's a passion and something I want to go do, but I don't have any real adventures to be able to share. Let's see. Once you have your spreadsheet available to the public, will you be done offering classes or tutorials on how to properly use your spreadsheet? Well, it wasn't in my plans really to try and sell this, but I could do that as far as a membership, or something along those lines once I monetize. But then it's like I need to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, which is why this live, for instance, if somebody's like, whoa, I really want to understand what's going on here and they're intrigued and they don't know what's coming next, how long do they want to spend in this, or did they get the gist? But if they watch this for the 93 minutes, and 100 people do that, then that's a pretty good live, and then you can monetize your channel, and that opens up for merchandise. It opens up for memberships, advertising revenue, all sorts of stuff. All right, so why did that only copy to there? Because I copied it into the wrong space. I told you I took the 26th off. So let's see if it's still in the... There we go. So then looking over here, these all collapse as well so that I can minimize the amount of space that's inside of all this stuff. There's been a lot of thought put into this. It's, I need this, I want that, and how does it look nice and everything else. So we just got 2 more days, the 1st and the 2nd, to enter in. so they'll start doing its calculations. And we can go back to this main sheet. So what do you think I should sell it for? What do you think is a good price? I don't need this data anymore. You know, the nice thing about this sheet too is it's like it does self-correcting. It does self-correcting stuff. So it's like if you forget to log something and you can't figure it out because of your screenshots or any of that type of stuff, after 100, it's going to push out that mistake, right? So you might be off by a 1, you know, when you look at your rank. And a lot of times that's because it's like, how does DoorDash actually handle a canceled order because somebody stole the food? Does it count as an acceptance rate or does it not? Or does it just act as though the offer and the job never existed? You know, so then am I logging it when I shouldn't log it? You know, that type of a thing. And I get different answers from different support people. So it's just really frustrating. All right, so that's set up for today for the 3rd. Gas is set up for the 3rd. So this sheet is done. Tomorrow's Tuesday, so that's done. I'm also on this merchant side over here. I'm planning on trying to figure out how to track whether or not it's going to go look on my sheet here, and it's going to find out if it can find the word catering, and that way I'll know how many catering jobs and what my best catering business is, you know, that type of thing, or which ones do I get the most large orders from. So that's coming. I need to expand the conditional formatting for this so that if this field is a negative, that these will all turn red just for appearance purposes. Here, I'll give you a little tour since you didn't watch the other video. Oh, look at that. We got images. I need to go even smaller. We're going to go even smaller. You're not going to be able to read any of this, but I'll just give you the tour. Well, that's interesting. I don't like that. The cells are too small. Oh, my battery's running low. Guess what? We're ending the live. Be right back. Try refreshing that real quick. So this just gives a breakdown of all the different food orders and food order types and accepts versus declines and the percentages. And then over here on the left, these are all called slicers, so that you can actually drill down if you wanted to see. If you only wanted to see April, for instance. See if that worked. It shows you what you actually did on a certain date. So if I wanted to know how many pauses and everything, instead of looking at the log sheet of all the drop downs and whatnot, I can say, okay, I want to see what I did on this week period. So there's 4 days, 5, 6, 7. What did I do? What was the trend there? And you click on OK, and everything pops around and changes and gives you that information. So it's like, this is just a very quick way of saying, all right, I want to drill down. I want to see, what type of offers I actually got. Let's see, zone types of deliveries. So if I cleared this out and said food deliveries, it's only going to show you food deliveries. But with the food deliveries, I had anything that was classified as that. This is how many times I did a pause. One pause, I did 0%, just a pause. No pause was 70% of the time I didn't pause at all. 0.7% I did a prevent, et cetera, et cetera. My acceptance rate was 99.9% on those 7 days or whatever that I selected. Or you can say, okay, food delivery, and then you come on up here as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was selected as food delivery. And you see, it shows you on those days, what I did. This is obviously just food delivery, but if you wanted to compare your ratios for food delivery versus what else we got? Trying to find something popular. May not have had any large orders. Pizza.
Go, go, go.
So food orders versus pizza. It would show 188 of those is what I did, and then it shows you the ratio. 12% of those orders during that week were pizza, and 87.8 were the others. Just interesting that you can drill down whatever combination that you want, and then set everything back. very easily in a graphical form. I don't know why that's not. It's interesting. Try to set this back to where it was, selecting everything. Yeah. I was assuming that it was going to change that. It was going to change it, but it doesn't change it until you actually select OK. And then this takes all the information as to what the acceptance rating and everything and shows you what your current status is. And then that current status then pulls in this information up top here, just so at a moment's notice, anybody can tell if they're platinum, silver, or gold, and then I'll tell them what their perks are. $50, huh? Since you have the list of merchants in your city. Well, that's my city. That's just my zone. I went through the DoorDash app and I zoomed in on everything, and knowing my market, I knew what stores were in there and would add them, made it alphabetically, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine how many cities there are throughout the United States. That's the difficult part. I don't have all that information. Why don't you expand it by reaching out to other people across other states to add? That's a good idea, and you could probably make that into some type of a, hey, you give me this, I'll pay them for that information. Yeah, I am working today. This is a habit tracker that I created. So this was something I found out on YouTube, and the guy walked you through how to set it all up. So I made it and added it to the sheet. So same type of information. You tick off some of this stuff. Actually, let me do it in the middle here. You can toggle these all by just hitting the space bar, toggling them on and off, but you see it up here automatically reflected that. If I toggle it back, then everything goes back up. This number changes. The idea is you repeat something 30 times, then it becomes habit, right? So I started creating, what are the things that I need to do for YouTube, and setting up the pie chart and entering in the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. This is all of the data on one sheet so that I can go in and go take a look at it. And actually there's all these sheets are hidden. This is set up for the next 10 years. Anything that's dark colored is stuff that's actually being revealed. All the other stuff is just hidden so that the document isn't that large. I had created a little calculator, and that little calculator is like when I first started, I wanted to be able to say, was it slow times or peak times? What was the dollar amount, that I was looking for that could probably be changed to a drop down? What was the offer amount? And I put these in based off of the quarter, and that's how much time. Oh, peak hours, that's automatically at a $20 rate. Slow times was a $15 rate. What was the mileage? You put in that mileage, and then it calculates how many minutes it's going to take you to drive those miles. And if the time purchased is greater than the miles, how long it's going to take you to drive the miles, then it's an accept at a $15 rate. If it's a $20 rate, does that change? So if this dropped down to $4.75, then that's a decline. So this is another reason why it was like, take a screenshot, use this tool right here, because you can take that, enter in the data, and then all that information will tell you, hey, this should have been a decline. And you look at your tracking and you're like, well, I looked at that job in the screenshot and I accept. I accepted it, and maybe I shouldn't have accepted it. Then I was playing around with that estimated time. It's like, is there a way of telling with their, it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes? Does that mean that the average job is a $40 job that they have? And that doesn't mean that you're going to get a $40 job. That means that's $40 per hour. That's the hourly rate. So that means that you might get a job that pays you $20 that you can get done in 30 minutes, or it may pay you $10 that you can get done in 15 minutes. But I'm just kind of curious as to whether that 2 to 3 minute, offer rate, that estimated time, if that's tipping their hand as to what those job offers are. That would take a lot of tracking. Every time that you were sitting there waiting, you'd have to look at the screen, see what it is, log that time, and then when you log the job, then you'd have to go physically look at the screenshot of that and match that up. And it would just be really tedious, but it would really be interesting to find out what the truth is on that. Then if you're a margin dasher, then this was kind of like a little heat map as to what's an acceptable job and what's not an acceptable job. And if you're a volume dasher, same principle. And that was it for this sheet. So on this sheet, the data that's on this sheet is, I'll enter in 1 because I'm not going to be able to finish this, but we'll go through this. So that was January 22nd. So I'm going to go into my earnings. I'm going to go pull up January 22nd. $323.66 was the 21st. So the dollar amount that I made was $389.97. So I'm just going to enter $389.97. I'm going to come on over here. I'm going to click on that earn per offer up at the top right corner. You can't see that, but that shows your dasher pay, which was $144.43. Then the total tips was $245.54. So then this information here, the mileage deduction, once we, I was off that day. Never mind. I'm going to enter this over here. $389.97. That's why I didn't calculate the mileage. So then I started at 5:54, which is more than 5 minutes before the my scheduled time. So I say that I was early. I finished my dash at 12:22 a.m. So that means I finished late, which is a good thing. Green and green, and I was not a pro shopper. Now, what I found was anytime that I made over $400, it was usually green and green that I had started earlier, or let's say I made over the. It means that I made over my $20 per hour, and I wasn't limited. So, see, 389 is above 360, or 20 times 18 hours. Well, I was early and I stayed late. 323.66. I was on time and I quit early. 316, early, on time. 354, under the 360, late and late. 352, now this one does not meet the criteria. There I was early and early. 389.84, early and early. So you see these early and earlies a lot of times, or 50% or better, like early and early. You know, we got here, this one was on time and late, 406. It's not 100% accurate, but it's like, whoa, if 60, 70, 80% of the time, if I'm going to have an 80% probability that I'm going to make more than 360, then maybe I need to really change and make sure that I schedule myself from 6 o'clock until midnight, but I start my shift early. And it would really be interesting, too, to note that I think it's more like if you start around 15 minutes early and take one job past your quitting time, I think that's when you really make much better money. So schedule yourself, start early by 15 minutes, and then take a job past your quitting time, no matter where it leaves you. Or you make the decision of, no, I'm not going to accept that, and you decline it, the clock runs out, and now you've lowered your probability of getting, those good jobs. And so those good jobs a lot of times means that you're getting, catering orders and large orders and that type of stuff. If you don't mind, I need to go use the men's room real quick. So give me like 5-minute break, if you will. I'll be right back. Let me see if I can do something here. You guys hear that? No, that's all working. All right. I will be right back. All right, I'm back. So we were going down here and we were entering in that information. And so we got to I wasn't pro shopper. These just kind of tell you that these will automatically get filled when we enter in some more data. And so we just keep scrolling over, and that's what's needed next. And so that's total deliveries. We'll just look at our earnings. It's 42. And then we put in our time, that our active time, which was 13:06. And then we put in our dash time, which was 18:27. And so then everything should be calculated at that point across, and that's why the field shrunk. And then this area over here, I started keeping track of, wrong area. This area right here, I go into the other sheet and I count, what was my AR for the 23rd. And so I'll come on over here. I'll go into my sheet, the log sheet. I'll expand this and I'll look for the 23rd of January. Or I could just come up here and do the Control F 1/23. Whoops. Control F 1/23. And so it brings us right down to the date. And so you can see my acceptance rating was an 89. I come on over here and I enter in 89. Now I'm trying to make it so that, and I probably already have the functionality, I just have not delved into it, but that all data sheet, I should be able to, there's a pivot table and I should be able to put in the 23rd and it'll pull all that information. Alarms going off everywhere, every 10 minutes. I should be able to query that date and it'll automatically give me all this on a single line, and then I just got to copy that entire line and paste it in here, and it'll speed up the process. Because right now it's just a very manual process, like how many declines that I have on the 23rd. And so then I'll have to scroll up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5. I'm going to reduce this down a little bit, make it a little bit easier. You won't be able to see it as well, but it's a lot easier to count everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 declines. Come on over here and enter in a 5. How many pauses to prevent orders? So that I'm looking for this column right here. And it looks like I don't have any pauses. I have, they are pauses, but they're not pausing to stop an order. I've already picked up the order, and I know that I'm going to be relocating. So there's 2, there's a total of 6. So I come on over here and I go, this is 0. The next one's 6. Then it's like how many shopping orders. I don't shop. I don't do alcohol. Looks like we're buffering for some reason on the live. Looks like my computer's chugging along. My other computer's chugging along, and that's causing the stream. So there was no shopping, no alcohol. I don't do shopping and alcohol. So then we go look at pizzas. Those are always black over here in the food column. So 1, 2, 3 pizza orders. We enter in 3 high-paying offers, which we all know are not high-paying offers, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 high-paying offers. And this just helps when I query the data. It's like, okay, on this date, how many high-paying offers? So instead of having to come here and look and go somewhere else and look, in one spot, I can do everything. How many catering orders? Now, I call catering orders things that a company ordered and you're delivering it versus a large order. It'll come in large order catering, but it's $100 order of food or pizza. So I segment that so that I'm not saying, oh, I got, 8 catering orders today. No, I probably got 2 catering orders and 6 large orders. So we go back over to the data again, and these are all marked in blue. So this is still highlighted from the search feature up here on the 23rd. So this was a catering. We did 1 catering, and then this was 1 food, 2 foods, 1 catering, 2 foods, and that's it. 1 catering, 2 foods, and 0 pizzas. And then that's the data. That's all that I enter in for the day. That's what I track. So you see everything was really off of that AR tracker. That's where the data was for all of this. My earnings is where I got all of the stuff from DoorDash, the hourly earnings, the active time, the dash time, and then the log sheet kept my mileage. And so all that stuff is there. And then I just pull all that, put it into this one interface so that I can drill down into this data. And then this sheet here goes out to the entire year, and then it also breaks it down on a month to month. So far in the month of January, my average AR was 92. My monthly declines, I did 64. My pause to prevent, I did 12. I didn't take any real naps where I paused it for 35 minutes. I didn't do any shopping, didn't do any alcohol. I did 91 pizza orders, 192 high-paying offers. I did 9 catering orders, 32 large food, 10 of the pizza orders, and that's it. And then this breaks everything down on a week-to-week basis and tells me according to the week, what I actually did, so that I can start to cross-reference the first week in January of this year to the first week in January the previous year. And that's everything. So far this year, with the information that was entered, let's just run through the totals. I won't put all the rest of the data in there, but let's run through and see what we actually earned so far this month. So I'm going to go into my earnings, $389.97, $364.37, $338.04. Now I think it was the 26th that I took off, right? If I remember correctly. Because there's no gas right there. So we took the 26th off. So we're just going to come on over here to the 26th and we're going to say off and off. And that'll change some of the formatting. You see this blue line over here. It's got it going over there. Come on over here, 338.04. That was the 19th through the 25th. So 394. 14. 372.57. 371.56. 377. 391.47. Whoops. 371.56. 345.18. So this shows you right here that so far this month, I've averaged 353 is what my average is as far as pay. For January, my average was 365. So far, I've made $10,000 already this year. That was a good month. So this was 10,341 from this year. And if we go back to January, last January, I made 9,527. This was my total earnings from last year. I averaged 35 deliveries, and I had 46 partial days where I either didn't work a full shift and or took the day off. If we go over to the other sheet, it's not this sheet, it must be the other sheet. So far with DoorDash, I've made $351,000 and $351,732. That's what I've made so far with DoorDash. So these are the financials. I started out the first year only making $5,500. The second year, $24,821. 2022 in July is when I turned it on full time, and it jumped up to 66. And then in 23, 125. Last year, 107. Or The year before 107, last year 111. This just shows if I'm plus or minus the goal of $100,000. I don't have the historical data for milestones as to when I had my first delivery. What was my first day? I could change that. I know that date, but I don't know when I crossed over these different delivery thresholds. I knew at this point, and those will all get filled out. I might be able to look at the historical data and download that from the app. This is where I track all the banned stores that I don't pick up from. This is where I kind of keep track and give them 3 strikes as to whether or not I'm going to ban them. Just like the habit tracker, I've got a book tracker of all the stock market books and stuff that I have. This is just a start as sample data that I created from my library. But it's not accurate as far as where I'm at reading all that. Same habit tracker. This is a goals journal, which is kind of interesting. I haven't done a very good job of this, but every night when I get home, I should recap what I did. And that data is over here inside of this hourly tracking. So when you start and you put something in here, we'll say test. And then what happens is this test for January 29th. There it is, test. So I can then just read this like a book, and then each one of these years expand out. So this could be, in a sense, hey, I want to test this, try this. This is what happened. Here was the situation. And it just kind of lets me journal all this. But this was all prior to wanting to start a YouTube channel. And so I haven't done a very good job of saying that this is what I'm going to start out with. And then how did I finish? It's coming. Probably the plans right now are to continue to do the hourly or the daily earnings or the nightly earnings from the recap for the day. I'm going to put all those inside of a playlist, and then once a week I'm going to do a weekly breakdown where I'm going to kind of create that dashboard and have it just go look through all the data and then just select the weeks, for the weeks, and it'll populate all the data on there. So then I can run through and I can say, look, this is how many food orders I had, blah, blah, blah. This is how many declines that I had. But that's creating a system. I'm entering in the data. The data is there. I create the tool to access the data, pull out a report, and then I create a video and I put that in the playlist. And then if somebody wants to go through and watch the playlist or watch the weekly breakdown of the earnings, that could be a weekly, that could be then turn into monthly, that could turn into quarterly, that could turn into annual. So then that gives you your to-do list of projects. That gives you your to-do list of projects down the road. But yeah. So there's all sorts of stuff, and those things could all be hidden behind the membership levels. So if you actually want to go in and you want to talk about all this type of stuff, or you want to ask questions and drill down and talk about different scenarios or test a theory or something along those lines, and then you pay for the membership. Well, currently it is 4:31. I need to get ready to go jump in the shower and get all my stuff ready for the road trip. So once this catches up, because it's lagging quite a bit, then I'm going to end this. I still have to create a thumbnail for it, so that when this processes, then it'll show up under the live feed and look pretty. Do you hear music in the background?